Hey everybody, welcome to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer. I am here live at Levi Stadium. Sorry about being a little bit late for the show today. Long traffic jam getting into the stadium, so a little bit later than normal. But welcome to the 49ers preview show, pregame. We're going to have an update on Brandon Aiyuk here in just a second. We'll take a look at all of the burning questions that I put together for this game, the keys to victory today for the San Francisco 49ers. You know, the New York Giants, the 49ers, this is a long storied rivalry between these two teams. The 49ers and Giants have actually played each other 42 times. That's regular season and postseason. 8 of those 42 games between the 49ers and the Giants have come in the postseason. So far, these two teams in 42 games, each one has won 21. 21 wins for the 49ers, 21 for the Giants. Tonight, we're going to break the tie, and either the 49ers or the Giants are going to take the lead in this series. It's an interesting matchup here at Levi Stadium. The New York Giants, without Saquon Barkley, without 2 of their starting offensive linemen as well. Then you also have the San Francisco 49ers, who, according to Adam Schefter, will be without Brandon Aiyuk today. So the 49ers dealing with some injuries of their own. No Brandon Aiyuk. It's also likely that Ambry Thomas doesn't play tonight either for the 49ers. That's a big one, especially for that 49ers defensive backfield, which has already been kind of struggling a little bit. If Ambry Thomas isn't able to go, that means the 49ers are going to be in a little bit of a pickle with what they do on the back end of their defense. You know, obviously with Brandon Aiyuk, not quite as big of an issue with Aiyuk, because you've got Ronnie Bell who can come in and step in and replace him. You know, and so with Ronnie Bell, if you've listened to Metallica at all, you know for whom the bell tolls. That's the deal tonight for Ronnie Bell. He's the guy that last week got all of those reps when Brandon Aiyuk was on the sideline a little bit. So I think you're going to be seeing him have to be the guy that steps up. Like I said, Ambry Thomas also a possibility of not playing today. If he doesn't play, I think then you look at Trace Willing as being the guy that has to step up. Trace Willing, if you remember, if you watch the channel enough, last weekend, the 49ers had elevated him from the practice squad for the game. Well, he has actually now been promoted, not just elevated, but promoted to the 49ers 53-man roster. So Trace Willing on the 53-man. In order to make room for Trace Willing, they released Anthony Brown. So just a couple of days ago, Anthony Brown was signed to the team. He must still not be fully back, ready to go. They decided to release him. Trace Willing promoted up to the 53. Also tonight, elevations from the practice squad will include Shamar Jean-Charles, the cornerback that they signed this year from the Green Bay Packers practice squad. He has been elevated. He will be active tonight, as will wide receiver Chris Conley. So veteran wide receiver Chris Conley steps in. Again, you know, no Brandon Aiyuk. That's the expectation. Without Brandon Aiyuk, again, I would expect to see a lot more of Ronnie Bell. You'll see a little bit more maybe of Juwan Jennings, but not so much. Jennings is more of a guy that they don't really like to have lined up as an outside guy. He's more of that third wide receiver when they're in 11 personnel. You know, over here in the comment section, one of our guys, it's a member of the Toolbox. Let me get over here. Sorry, guys, I haven't been paying attention to the comments totally yet, but there was one from Gav. He says Juice gets under a half a target tonight, Jack. I think with the injury, without having Brandon Aiyuk, I would expect to see Kyle Juszczyk see a target, maybe 2. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Juszczyk with a big catch up one of the sidelines off of their leak route that they ran. We saw them run a leak play last week with Juwan Jennings for a big game against the Rams on Sunday. That's a play that the players really like to also use Kyle Juszczyk on at times. So I could see that happening tonight for the 49ers with Kyle Juszczyk. So Shane Calamarino, another member is in the house. We got Andrew. He says, Jack, get in there before the brisket's all gone. I know I need to hurry up. We got to get this done so I can not so much the brisket, but I like to go onto the field pregame so I can let you guys know what's going on, especially those of you that follow the live blog. Talk to you a little bit after the game about it too. So we'll get the show on the roll really quick. Let's take a look at my five big questions for this game. Again, like I said, the 49ers come into this thing with a 10.5 point favorites over the Giants. If the 49ers lose tonight, it would be a giant upset. But I do, you know, you look at this, and the number one way that the 49ers can lose is if they don't contain Daniel Jones. You know, look back to last season. Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Patrick Mahomes, especially the first 3. when you look at those names, those are guys who you think of have the ability to beat you with their legs. Patrick Mahomes, he's going to beat you with his arm mostly, but he can also run around and make some crazy plays. Justin Wilson, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, guys that have really, the 49ers have struggled with those kind of mobile quarterbacks. All four of their losses during the regular season coming against teams that had those mobile quarterbacks, and it's been a long time a problem. When you look at Daniel Jones over these first 2 weeks of the season, he has rushed 22 times for 102 yards, and he's picked up a touchdown. The other thing that concerns you with him is that he's also used his legs to keep drives alive. Jones has picked up 8 first downs while running. That's actually more than any running back on the New York Giants roster. Saquon Barkley only had 7 on the season. Jones with 8 first downs. And you look at this, New York's going to be without Barkley tonight. He injured his ankle late in Sunday's win over Arizona. As a result, I think you're going to see Matt Breida as a starter tonight for the Giants. This makes stopping Jones the primary focus for this 49ers defense. And when you're talking about stopping Jones, this is all about assignment football. They run that zone read. Short week makes it a little bit harder to get into a rhythm in terms of making sure you have your assignment. When you're stopping an option, it's all about assignment football. The 49ers didn't even get to have one full-speed practice in preparation. So a short week against a team that's not in their division, that's not usually the way that this plays out. This could be a tough matchup for the 49ers today, especially with Daniel Jones and his ability to run. I understand there's a couple of offensive linemen missing for the Giants, but you go back and you look at that game last week, the Giants were actually better off with their backup offensive linemen in the game in terms of in their comeback. So, number one, you got to contain Daniel Jones. That's the number one thing they need to do. Number two thing that this defense needs to do tonight, they need to keep Darren Waller out of the end zone. San Francisco has some recent history here with the New York tight end. Remember, Waller last season was with the Raiders against the 49ers in that late season game. He caught 3 passes for 72 yards, including a 24-yard touchdown on the opening possession of the game. And he provides a tough matchup for Fred Warner and safeties Talanoa Hufanga, primarily Talanoa Hufanga and also Tayshaun Gibson probably. You look at New York, like I mentioned, this is a team that is going to be without 2 of their starting offensive linemen. And that could help the 49ers in coverage because you're going to be getting more pressure from your defensive line. So no Andrew Thomas at left tackle, no Ben Breederson at left guard for the Giants tonight. But moving in is going to be Joshua Ezeudu at left tackle and Mark Lewinsky at left guard. They were very productive last week in that game. They were on the field when the Giants scored 24 unanswered points in the second half to come from 21 down to beat the Cardinals. Now, I understand 49ers Cardinals, big difference in terms of their ability, but still it shows you the potential of this Giants team if you give them a break. Remember, the Giants were in the playoffs last year. The Giants were a playoff team. The Giants were a team that won a playoff game last year. So they're not a slouch, and I don't think that they should be looked at as such either coming into this game. Last week against Arizona, Ezeudu allowed just 1 sack on 45 pass blocking snaps. That's it. He played 45 pass blocking snaps at the left tackle that's going to be starting tonight for the Giants. He gave up 1 sack. There was no pressures, no quarterback hits, nothing else. He just had the 1 sack. Meanwhile, Glowinski came in about halfway through. He played 24 pass blocking snaps. He did not allow a quarterback hit, did not allow a quarterback sack, but he did allow 1 hurry. But again, really good numbers for both of these backup offensive linemen that are stepping in. And what I would say is, when you're looking at the 49ers and you're thinking about their history with backup offensive linemen, just take yourself back to the Tennessee game Thursday night a couple of seasons ago. The Tennessee Titans playing without their starting, I think it was their starting left tackle. Might have been both of their starting tackles, I think. And they went out to Tennessee and lost that game, partly because of some stuff that didn't involve them. But if you remember, that was a big night receiving for A.J. Brown against the 49ers in that game last year in 2021. So you got to still get after the quarterback. I understand these are backups, but again, a short week could help out both sides. And as we saw on Sunday against Los Angeles, if the 49ers are unable to generate pressure on the quarterback, it could be a long day on that back end because they can struggle. Depending on how tight they can play them, that could become an issue for the 49ers. So 49ers defense got to stop Daniel Jones, need to contain Darren Waller. And I think those are the 2 guys you have to focus on, and then you play from there and let it play out and go. Gav is saying that the Giants are beat up bad. They are, but again, as I was just talking about, those Those offensive linemen played pretty good last week against an Arizona Cardinal team. Not as tough as the 49ers, but still an NFL team nonetheless. All right, let's get into it. Let's go over to the defensive side. Excuse me, the offensive side. So we started on the defense, especially because of the injuries to one to start over there because of injuries there's no Saquon Barkley, and then there's the starting left guard and left tackle out for the Giants tonight. When you look at the 49ers offensive side, my first question is, will Brock Purdy continue to roll? Purdy's undefeated in 7 regular season starts since taking over the quarterback job late last season. In addition to that win streak, the 49ers offense with Purdy at the controls has scored at least 30 points in 6 of those 7 games. The only game that this 49ers team hasn't scored at least 30 points with Brock Purdy as the quarterback last year at Seattle on Thursday night. So if the 49ers can get to at least that total tonight and get to 30, it would actually mark the longest such streak in 49ers in team history. They've done it 6 in a row. If they can get to 7, that would be a new record for the 49ers. Actually, since they've done it 5 in a row, it would be, if they do it one more, it would be 6, and that's the most in a row in the team history. When you look at Brock Purdy, he's gotten off to a hot start. Last week's performance, there's been some people talking about it maybe being one of his worst performances of his career. I would beg to differ with that. What I would say is, if you look at Brock Purdy's last performance against the Rams, he had a higher yards per attempt, a higher average depth of target, and you had a higher completion percentage than he had in week 1 out in Pittsburgh. In fact, if Brock Purdy's touchdown, if the touchdown of Deebo Samuel that he threw out the Deebo Samuel that was ruled a lateral, if that hadn't been ruled a lateral, Brock Purdy would have finished the game on Sunday with a passer rating of 107.3, which actually would have matched his passer rating from week 1 out in Pittsburgh that everybody was so excited about, And when you watch Purdy play, this is the guy who, throughout the offseason, there was questions about his arm strength, ability to get the ball down the field. So far this season, 15 of his 20 passes have traveled at least 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. On those 20 passes, Brock Purdy has completed 75%. He's 15 of 20. Through the first 2 weeks, he's also completed 13 of 14 passes in that intermediate 10 to 19 yard range, And in that 10 to 19 yard range, 13 of 14, that's 92.8%. Last year, he finished at 80.4%, by far the best number since Pro Football Focus began tracking that back in 2003. So good stuff there from Brock Purdy. He's definitely been on a roll, definitely been looking good up to this point, and the 49ers need to keep him playing at a high level. That's one of the other things, too. When you look back at the games the 49ers lost last year, not only were they playing against mobile quarterbacks, but on top of that, they were dealing with guys that they're in games that their quarterbacks didn't play very well. You go back to the game against Denver, not a good game for Jimmy Garoppolo. Same thing with the game out in Atlanta. Then you go to the game week 1 against Justin Fields in Chicago. That was a rough performance by Trey Lance, making his first career start. Well, I shouldn't say not his first career start, his third career start, but his first start as the 49ers starting quarterback. So something just to think about there. Again, a big day for Brock Purdy. You got to get him. He's got to be the guy, especially without Brandon Aiyuk. How can he perform there? I think that I've been one that's been high on his performance to this point. So what I would say is, you need to expect him to be able to still come out and play at a high level, because he still has Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and so on around him to help out. You look at the guys who he has around him. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. The question that I have for him tonight is, will he be able to rush for over 100 yards for the 3rd straight week? McCaffrey right now, he's eclipsed 100 yards in each of these first 2 games. He has 268 rushing yards through week 2. That's the second most in 49ers franchise history, trailing only Garrison Hurst, who had 325 in 1998 to open the season those first 2 games. Hurst helped out greatly by a 98-yard touchdown run against the Jets in the season opener. But beyond that, you look at it coming into this one, McCaffrey needs just 58 rushing yards tonight to overtake Hurst for the most rushing yards through the first 3 games in franchise history. On top of that, if McCaffrey can gain over 100 yards tonight, he would become the first NFL running back to eclipse that total in each of the first 3 games since Dalvin Cook in 2019. He'd also become the only running back in 49ers history to reach that mark. So something to keep an eye on there as we look at the game. And then My last question, I wrote this obviously before we knew that Brandon Aiyuk was not going to play, was will he play? And the answer to that is no. So we've already got the answer to Brandon Aiyuk playing. But still, I think you look at this, and I think that he should be playing. I understand that there's a more than just this week ahead, but if you look at back to last season, the 49ers went into Atlanta and they decided to not play Nick Bosa. A lot of the talk this week has been sit him because you have bigger games down the road. Well, it's kind of the same thing last year with the 49ers in Atlanta. You know, I've had some pushback as far as the number of injuries the 49ers had in that game and so on. But if you go back to it, yeah, they didn't have Jimmy Ward in that game, but they also didn't have Jimmy Ward at any point in the first 6 weeks of the season. He didn't play in Atlanta, but he also hadn't played a snap for them prior to that either. Eric Armstead was a guy that was in and out of the lineup. And then I think the bigger thing is, you know, also Diamondre Lenore had stepped into the starting lineup in place of Emmanuel Mosley. The bigger thing, though, is that not only did you go into that game without Nick Bosa, but you also went into that game and had injuries. You ended up losing Charvarius Ward, so Samuel Womack had to come on. But even before the injuries took place, Atlanta had already gone down the field right away on you and scored a touchdown on their opening drive. And so I think, you know, you look at that game and it's going to be, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a precursor to tonight, but I do think that it could be something to keep an eye on because Brandon Aiyuk not playing would be an issue. And we just got the 49ers official report as far as their inactives for tonight. No Brandon Aiyuk, as we mentioned, Ambry Thomas also not in. So no Ambry Thomas. That means that's official now. That means we're probably going to see a lot of Trace Wooling on the field tonight. Or possibly you're just going to have to see Isaiah Oliver stick in the slot. That's really the two options there. Either you're going to have Diamondre Lenore slide into the slot like you've been doing with Trace Wooling on the edge, on the boundary side, or you're going to go with Isaiah Oliver in the slot tonight. I would expect that most likely it's going to be Isaiah Oliver playing in the slot tonight because of this report that I just got. Like so I said, the 49ers inactives for tonight. Here's the list: Brandon Allen, Nick Zakelj, Talia Davis, Jalen Graham, Ty Davis Price, Brandon Aiyuk, and Ambry Thomas. Those are the inactives for the 49ers tonight. Again, with no Ambry Thomas, that means to me that we're most likely going to be seeing Isaiah Oliver in the slot with Diamondre Lenore focusing on just outside, along with Charvarius Ward, Alan Hufanga, and Tayshaun Gibson on the back end of this defense. So Taylor Broussard coming in, he says, Jack, it's probably safe to assume that Aiyuk has an AC joint sprain. Concern is likely full separation with additional hits. Taking this game off means almost 3 weeks of no contact. It would be 2, right? 2 weeks of no contact before the next game against the Cardinals here. But it would limit his contact, at least for this week. So in that regard, you know, limit the exposure. The thing is, if you can't lose this game, because right now the 49ers, when I look at the landscape of the NFL, especially the NFC, the 49ers are a 17-win team. They have the talent across this to go 17-0 when you look at the other teams in the NFL and the NFC. Really, the rest of their schedule, they have the potential to go at 17-0. However, you've got a tough game against the Dallas Cowboys, who were dealt a tough blow today, losing Trevon Diggs. He's out for the season. Their big cornerback out for the year in Dallas, tore the MCL in his knee today. And then also you have the Philadelphia Eagles. But beyond those two, this is the 49ers season to go through and really run the table, I think. Now, do I expect them to go 17-0? No, but I can see this being a 15, 16-win team. You can't drop a game like this to a team that you should be able to beat shortly, all the other things that go into it. But this is a big game for the 49ers, a conference game, and they need to get after it, take care of business. As far as my prediction goes for tonight, I have the 49ers winning big. I have the 49ers winning this game by a score of 31-13. I put that prediction together thinking that Brandon Aiyuk would be a go for the 49ers. I would be surprised if they hit 31 tonight, based on what I just mentioned as far as, again, no Brandon Aiyuk. If they can get to 31 tonight without Aiyuk playing, that's a big deal, especially when you're facing against the Giants offense that's going to run the ball. They're going to run it a lot, and they're going to try to chew up clock and take time off the board, because that's what they do. They are a run-heavy team. The Giants are going to come out here trying to run the ball over and over again if they can. They don't want to have to throw the ball if they don't have to. I would expect to see a game plan from New York very similar to what we saw last year when the 49ers the took on the Atlanta Falcons. Uh, again, a guy if they can get a lead, this game stays close. If this game stays within a score, expect to see Brian Dable with a lot of running to really try to chew up that clock, spin it, keep it quick, so that you can go out and then get a chance to win this thing in the fourth quarter. I expect that to be the game plan for Brian Dable tonight. If the 49ers don't get after Daniel Jones, if they can't force turnovers, and this game stays tight, that becomes a very interesting fourth quarter here at Levi Stadium for the San Francisco 49ers. So just checking out really quick to see what's going on over here. We've got Lucas Pesci in the house. He says, I think Oliver plays in order to match up against Waller. I agree with you. I do think that Isaiah Oliver will play tonight. As I just found this out right now as we're talking. So I was going to say I think it was going to be very interesting with Trace Swilling, but as I was talking through, my brain caught up with everything else, and I realized that they do have Isaiah Oliver to play in the slot. It is a good matchup with Waller because he is a bigger safety. Oliver actually played a pretty good game last Sunday against the Los Angeles Rams. He had a big interception for them in that game. So I would look to this as be a big piece of the puzzle tonight for the 49ers. Isaiah Oliver, Darren Waller in coverage. And I agree with Lucas here. That's a nice matchup for them because it's not a little corner working against them like they had last year. Jimmy Ward, a little bit slower, a little bit shorter. You have Isaiah Oliver, who's a little bit better cover guy than Jimmy Ward was last year. And that might be able to help them with stopping Darren Waller in this game tonight. Again, Brandon Aiyuk out. Ambry Thomas out, Ty Davis Price, Jalen Graham, Kalia Davis, Nick Zakel, and Brandon Allen are not active for the 49ers. My prediction was a 49ers win tonight by a score of 31-17. We'll see how it goes. Take it for what it's worth. I want to thank everybody who took the time to tune in. Make sure you do me a favor before you leave. If you guys could please hit that like button for me. Once you've done that, if you're watching the channel, you're not already a member or a subscriber, subscribe to the channel and then turn on your notifications. I promise you're not going to want to miss any of the updates right here on Inside the Corners with Jack Hammer. So make sure you have your notifications on. So every time we go live or every time there's a new update onto the channel, you get notified. And then last but not least, thanks for tuning in. I'll be back after the game as well. We'll do a post-game show. Bring your questions. Let's go. We can have a nice conversation about this 49ers game against the Giants. Again, a big one. 49ers looking to go 3-0. The 49ers Giants coming into this thing tied with 21 wins apiece and a 42-game series between these two. So keep it up. Let's have a good rest of your evening. Remember, it's Thursday night football tonight here from Levi Stadium, 49ers Giants. As the big Gav says, juice that like button, faithful. Have a great evening. I will be back with you after the